If you are seeing my my web browser, should say Adobe Document Services in nice big text. Sweet. Thank you, everybody. And by the way, I'm really honored to be speaking here. So thank y'all for having me. I definitely appreciate it. It boggles my mind that I'm speaking to a group where it's 8 p.m. Where I am, it is 9:30 in the morning. It never ceases to amaze me being able to do stuff like this around the world. So welcome to Adobe Document Services, also known as doing cool stuff with documents. I am Raymond Camden. I am a Senior Developer Evangelist for Adobe. This is my second time at Adobe, and not really doing any ColdFusion stuff. I will kind of talk a bit about how to use what I'm talking about today in ColdFusion, but this is primarily just kind of a pure web / backend type play. But I've been at this group for almost 2 years now, all focused on working with documents. If you have any questions about what I'm talking about today and just want to follow up, you can reach me at raymondcamden.com. That's my website. And if you are on Twitter, you can send me a DM at Raymond Camden. I absolutely don't mind your questions. It helps me help you. It helps me, figure out where we need to improve documentation and so forth. So definitely reach out to me if you have any questions. I do not mind that at all. So when we talk about document services, that's kind of a vague term. It really kind of falls into two major buckets. First being, viewing and working with PDFs on the web. And the solution that I'll be talking about today involving that will be 100% free. And then the other side is working with PDFs on the server. And that is very broad, very wide, slicing, dicing, splitting, OCRing, etc. Doing things with PDF documents in the server. Now, what that particular aspect of what I'll be talking about today, that is not free, but we have a really good free trial, and I'll give you the details about that once we get to that part of the presentation. So I'll be talking about all of this, trying to give you kind of a mile-high look at the services that we support. I will say there are definitely things that we do that are also present in the ColdFusion server solution. So like CF Document, CF PDF. I was a big fan of those tags. That's what actually got me interested in working with PDFs a long time ago. So there will be some duplication. So some of what I showed today may be something that you don't want to do with our service, that you'd rather do with ColdFusion, and that's fine. But hopefully I'll show you some other options and things that are not available in ColdFusion that you may want to integrate into your ColdFusion solutions. So let's start by talking about some of the front-end stuff and the free stuff, because free is always fun. And that will be the Adobe PDF Embed solution. So this is a client-side / JavaScript solution for viewing PDFs on the web. And what it does is it provides much better control over the experience. So browsers for a long time have done a good job of rendering PDFs. However, and typically when they do so, it's more of a full screen experience. You don't have any of the control or any of your site layout. And our solution is going to give you much more control over that. We give you different types of way to view PDFs. We give you hooks into the document. And all of this is going to be free, which is nice. So just as an example of what it looks like, in case you can't tell, I am using a web-based presentation framework called Reveal.js. So this is not PowerPoint or Keynote. This is all done in my browser. And this is actually an example of our embed API rendered in the browser. Note that I have my site layout. I have a title on top. I have the slide navigation on the side. But this is a full PDF viewing experience to the point of, if I wanted to, I could do annotations. I could, draw arrows. I could do comments. I could just, this cat is cute. It is like a full Acrobat type experience. I can even download this PDF with my annotations in there and then share that with someone else. So it's a great way, for example, to provide feedback. But again, notice like all of this was done inside the web page. It wasn't a pop-out. It wasn't a full screen view. It was in context to my website. So how do we do this? The first thing you'll need to do is get a key. That can be done via our website, and we have links to get credentials. You will go to the developer console. It's possible that your organization already has an account here and is already working here, so you'll be familiar with it. But it's a fairly simple process. The only thing I'll point out is that when you create a key for PDF embed, it will be host specific. So what that means is, if you're building for RaymondCamden.com, for example, and you're running your website on localhost as you test, a key for Raymond Camden will not work for localhost because that is a different domain. So you can use multiple keys and use environment variables. Another trick that you could use is, when you specify the host, don't do the www. Don't do, for example, www.raymondcamden.com. Just do raymondcamden.com. That will work with subdomains. And what you can do is, in your local environment, use a host alias, for example, dev.raymondcamden.com. That points to 127.0.0.1. And you could use the same key on that domain that you use on www.raymondcamden.com. Just keep in mind, when you're making that key, and another thing to keep in mind is that you can't have multiple domains. So one key only applies to one domain, and you can't edit the domain. Now, these keys are all free. So if you screw up, you can erase it and start over again. But like this simple thing is what caused me the most trouble when I first started. So typically I recommend make a key for localhost, and then that will allow you to play, test out the library and see if it makes sense for you. So get a key, then you load the library. And like most JavaScript frameworks, that involves pasting in a script tag. And you can see I have an example right there. After you've done that, you then want to wait for the library to load. Now, if you've ever done anything with Google Maps, then they have a similar thing where before you start drawing maps on a web page, you have to wait for their library to load. So the way this looks and the way our docs show it is by using an event listener on the document object, listening for Adobe_DC_view_SDK.ready. And then at that point, you know that you're ready to use the library. The only issue with this code is that if you use it within the context of something like Vue.js, Alpine, React, whatever, it's possible that by the time you run this code, the event has already fired. Luckily, there's a really easy way around that. If you check the window object for Adobe DC, then the library is loaded. If it's not there, then you can add your event listener. And that's this little code snippet here is showing an example of that, where I could basically say, if it's already loaded, run a function. Otherwise, add an event listener, which does the same thing when it's fired, load my particular function. So after you've done all that, you'll then initialize and load the PDF. That sounds complex, but it's really just going to be a couple lines of code. So you begin by creating an Adobe DC view object that takes 2 arguments, takes your client ID, which is that credential that you made earlier, and it takes the name of a div on your web page. Now, this is not a CSS selector. It's, very specifically, you have to have a div. It has to have an ID, and you have to give that particular value in your code. After you've done that, you run the preview file method, and you do a couple things. You can tell it where the location is. In this case, it's a URL, and I'm using a relative URL. And you also have to give it a file name, which to me seems a bit silly, and I'm working with engineering to potentially get rid of that. But this is a good, kind of minimal example of what is required. So I'll show you a demo of this. I will run it first, and then I'll show you the code. This looks pretty similar to what I showed on the slide deck. You see an HTML page. You see the PDF embedded. And if we go into the code, I'll make that a little bit bigger for y'all. And you know what? It makes my eyes happier as well. But this code pretty much follows the same pattern that I showed on my slide. So I loaded my script block. I specify a key. I see if the library is already loaded. And so I run display PDF. Otherwise, I do an event listener. And this code is showing pretty much what I just showed on the slide. By the way, that div right there, PDF display, I specified right here. So hopefully that looks pretty simple. Oops, wrong way. Let's kick it up a notch. We do support multiple different types of views for your PDF document. We have something called sized container, which shows one page at a time. We have a poorly named full window, which is the default and displays PDF in a string. It's not really full window. It's essentially like full div, but it's the same view that you just saw where I was able to kind of view all my PDFs at once, all my pages at once, I should say. There's inline, which takes a PDF and actually stretches it to show every page. You do not want to do this on like a 50-page PDF because it will stretch out all 50 pages. And then we also have a lightbox version, which will do more of a modal type effect. All this is done by basically passing a tiny bit more code. In my preview file method, I'm passing a embed mode, which will be one of those 4 types. And then if we look at a demo, so again, here's the default. And I mentioned it has all the pages kind of streaming. You can see here, I'm just going down. If we do sized container, you'll see it's 1 page at a time. And by the way, all this white space on the side here, that's just because of my dumb demo. If I was doing this particular type of embed mode, I would definitely use some CSS to make it not so wide. So that's not an embed issue. It's just me being a bit lazy on the display. Inline, like I said, stretches the whole thing out. So we'll see all 6 pages. And I'll just scroll. You can see it's all here. And then Lightbox, let me show my better demo. So Lightbox will make more of a modal view. So you actually don't see the PDF immediately. And then I will click a button and the PDF will render and it's full screen. But if I hit the escape key, if I hit that little X, it goes away. And then I can bring it back again. So, basically you have these different views. You have to think about your document and what makes sense. So I think, for example, let me go back. Let me scroll down. So I think the default is good for documentation because you're kind of reading and going on. I think the size container where it's one page per view, that I think would be a bit better for more marketing, more brochure, more pretty stuff than the other view. A lot of this is going to just depend on what makes sense for your document. And by the way, I see a good question. What's the big advantage of using this over the Mozilla solution? I have not used the Mozilla solution very heavily. I haven't seen it or used it in quite some time. You know, I think Adobe is known for being like the PDF experts. Like, we created the PDF standard, we shepherded it, etc. So you kind of have best of breed type rendering and things like that. So I think that is potentially one reason. I am open to hearing contradictions and arguments against that. But that's typically what I would say, is that when it comes to PDF documents, I tend to trust Adobe to do a good job rendering it. Of course, I'm biased as well, but so there is more customization that you could do. You could toggle certain parts of the UI. You could do things like disable printing and saving. Obviously, we all know that if you disable save, for example, a web developer like myself, I can see the URL you're pointing to. I can get direct access to that PDF document. If you disable print, I could still use print screen. But a lot of people feel better when those UI options are removed. So we allow you to do that. Oops. And going the wrong way. You can also turn off the annotations, the comments, etc. And there are a full set of docs showing more on this. And the way it works basically is just more arguments to the preview file method. So for example, here I'm turning everything off. So download, printing, etc. And I see Sakar is that, and I apologize if I butchered your name. You're asking if you're able to save the source file when you add annotation and comments. Absolutely. And I will show you an example of that in a second. So in this particular case, I have turned off printing and saving. So Sakar, I can't actually show you that, but I will in a second. But that code is pretty much what I just showed on the slide. And I just turned it off there. Going back to what Sakar asked about being able to save, if I had not turned off that option, I'll go back to my first demo, absolutely, you can save. So I'm going to go in here and add a comment. Hello, world. I'm going to post that comment. Go over here and I am going to click download. And if I open this, you will see I have my comment right there. So yes, any annotations and things, if you don't actually turn off the ability to download the file, then yes, you can. So hopefully that made sense. We also give you hooks into all the particular events. So for things like if you want metadata about the PDF being rendered, like number of pages and stuff like that, we give you access to that. If you want to programmatically change the page or programmatically do searches, we provide an API for that. Also, the annotations themselves, they can be API driven. So you can take the annotations that someone adds to a PDF, and because we give you access to the events of adding annotations, you could take your annotations, you could get it as JSON, save it to your database, and when you render the PDF again, load and set those annotations for other people, which is pretty good. And just to be clear, like when I'm working over here and I'm adding comments, that's my copy of the PDF. I'm not editing the PDF on the server. So with the ability that we give you to kind of note those events and respond to them, you could do things where you update the actual PDF. We also provide support for Adobe Analytics. I should also add Google Analytics support was added recently. And we definitely give you access to all of the events. A good example of the event support, if you have a site where your legal team has said a person has to, they have to read the disclaimer before they go on. Typically, the way that works on the web is that we ask a person to scroll through a text area. With the PDF embed API, with the events, if you have a 3-page PDF, you could ensure that a person goes through all 3 pages. Now, you can't tell if they're actually reading or not, but we have like a page change event and you could register that and note that they have looked at all 3 pages. So we provide an online sandbox if you don't want to write any code and just want to show your manager, show your coworkers. This works with a document that is oddly, there we go, it loaded. And it has all the tools. And what's cool is that you can click generate code and just copy and paste this. The only thing that you have to change is the client ID. But if you want to see the different embed modes and see how it works, here's an example of 1 page at a time. And they used better CSS than I did, so it looks a lot nicer. And then again, here's the inline where it's all stretched out. If you want to test with your own documents, you can actually click open file and then pick your own PDF and just, see how it works. So this is online. This is free to use, free for you to play with. So I'm just checking the chat to see if we have any more questions about PDF embed. Taking a big sip of water. I see somebody typing. I will let you type. And I'll give it a few more seconds if I don't see a question come in. And it's okay if you think of something later. I don't mind coming back and answering questions. Cool. So that was the front end stuff. Now let's go to the back end. So we have a set of APIs. It falls into 3 core services. We also have 2 services which are an early access program. I won't be talking about them today, but you will see them in our documentation, and they'll be marked as either beta or early access. I'm going to focus on the things that you can actually use today that are released. We have SDKs for Java, Node, .NET, and Python. I put an asterisk by Python because the Python SDK only supports one of our core services. The Java SDK can be used with ColdFusion, but you have to get rid of some jars that conflict with ColdFusion. Tony Junks, probably saying his name a bit wrong. He has a GitHub project where he hosts our Java SDK, and he's manipulated it to work correctly with ColdFusion. But what's nice, or even nicer, is that we actually released new REST-based APIs about 3 weeks or so ago. That is really easy to use. I was going to build a demo in ColdFusion, and I got kind of stuck on working with a JWT in ColdFusion. And you can definitely do JWTs in ColdFusion. I'm a little bit rusty with ColdFusion. I will be honest about that. So I messed up on that. I do plan on sharing a ColdFusion example soon, but outside of the JWT, if you can do a CF HTTP call, then you could absolutely use our REST-based APIs. This particular service is not free, but you get 1,000 calls and you get 6 months to do it. So if you sign up today and go on a month-long vacation, you can come back and you still have time to kick the tires, play with it, and see if that makes sense for you. By the way, speaking of SDKs and REST and all that, my demos will focus on Node.js because that's what I'm most familiar with nowadays. But again, you could use any of these languages, any language at all with the REST-based APIs, and go crazy. So you will need credentials as opposed to the PDF embed API, which is just a key. The credentials for the services is a bit more complex. You will get a JSON file and you will get a private key that you will use when working with the SDKs or working with the REST-based APIs. So 3 main core services. We have PDF Services API, which is nice and vague. It'll make sense in a moment, hopefully. Document Generation API and the PDF Extract API. Let's start with PDF Services. So this used to be known as PDF Tools. So in case you're Googling and you find articles talking about Adobe PDF Tools API, that is the PDF Services APIs. And it's everything related to PDF creation and manipulation. So this is kind of like the Swiss Army knife, boring but practical API things you may want to do. So if you want to take a Word or Office document and convert that to PDF, or take HTML and convert it to PDF. We have an endpoint for that. If you want to go the other way, you have a PDF and you want to export it into images or to an Office document, we can do that. If you want to combine PDFs, if you want to OCR a PDF, if you want to compress or linearize a PDF, we have that. If you want to manipulate permissions, we give you that. If you want to do some things, for example, like splitting, shifting pages around, adding pages, and so forth, we got that. I mentioned split already, and we also have a way to get properties, essentially metadata about a PDF. So that's a lot. And again, I view this as the Swiss Army knife of doing things with PDF documents. So the general code flow, and this applies to all the SDKs. REST API is a little bit different, but in general, the SDKs start off by asking you to make a credentials object. You create what they call an execution context. Basically, what am I doing? Am I OCRing? Am I merging? You'll then specify your input, you'll execute it, and then you'll save the result. And like everything we do today follows that particular flow. This is an example in Node.js. It's very short. I would typically have a bit more comments and stuff like that. But even if you're not a Node person, or if you are and you've never seen this code before, you can see where I start off with the credentials. I mentioned that you get a JSON file and a private key, and that's just an example of pointing to that. By the way, you can get your credentials from environment variables. That's absolutely an option. And then once you have that, you create your execution objects. So in this block, that's unreadable, but I'm creating an OCR operation. I then specify the input. In this case, it's a file called OCR.input. I execute it, and then when I'm done, I save the result to the file system. So I will show you an example of this in Node, and we will run it. OCR example. So this is, pretty much the same code I showed before. Only difference is that I made it a bit nicer in terms of I created a function, for example, that handles all that for me, called OCR PDF, where I pass in my input, my output, and then my credentials. But the code in here is pretty much the exact same thing I showed on the slide. And if I can remember which terminal, here we go. Hopefully that's big enough. We'll go into services and we'll node the OCR example. It does a little bit of logging. It's running right now. It's doing an OCR. It's performing an operation. I think my network may be a little bit slow today because normally this is quite a bit faster. And then when it's done, it takes it and it saves it. And if we were actually to look at this, I'll open this up in Visual Studio, not Acrobat. This is the PDF that I took from my input. It is one big giant image, or I should say 3 pages of image. You can't select any text. You can't find anything. If I look at the OCR version 1, it's going to look pretty similar, but now I can actually select text. So that's, a pretty common thing, to get a PDF that is a scanned set of images. It's not searchable. You can't select text. And again, this is how we can correct that. Let me get back to my slides. So you can also set this up in a workflow. I'm not going to show this demo, but if you're using Power Automate, if you're using Pipedream, that's a service that I like. If you're using Amazon Lambda, it's our SDK is just that, an SDK. It's our REST API. It's just a REST API. So any platform that you can write code on can make use of Adobe Document Services. So just a couple of notes before we move on. And I am moving on quick. Like I mentioned, like 20 different operations. I'm not going to show you all of them because they all do the exact same thing pretty much. You get your credentials, you make your execution object, set your input, your output, and then run. But outside of changes to input, everything is the exact same. So I'll also reiterate that the credential information can be passed in via methods. Whenever I see credentials in the file system, I get a little worried because that's inherently risky, especially if you accidentally check it into your source control. So you definitely can pass everything in via methods and use environment variables instead of simple files. You can also chain stuff. So if you want to do both like OCR and optimize or OCR and password protect, you can do that. And I'm just looking to see if I have any questions about PDF services. I do not. So I will move on to the next pillar of our stuff, and that is document generation. So this is a fascinating API for me. You take a Word document and you're going to use it as a source code template, kind of. You take that, and then our API will take that Word document and it'll take your data and it will output a dynamic PDF or Word document. So here I have Microsoft Word. I have a grand total of 1 title and 1 paragraph. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to change some text to be tokens. So, you use ColdFusion. You're used to like pound name pound within a CF output tag. This is pretty much the same thing. I do this. I pass it to our APIs with some data, and then I get a dynamic PDF out. So the way that this works, it uses a template language called JSONata. And if you want to, I should have made that a link. Control-C, I'll paste it here. It is a simple template language. And so our API has that kind of baked in. It will support things much like ColdFusion. You can loop, you can do condition, you can do formatting. To be clear, it's not ColdFusion, it's not Node.js. You can't do everything in there. So sometimes you're going to have to manipulate your data before you call our API versus doing it in the Word document. And to be clear, when we say your data, it could be anything. So our docs talk a lot about JSON data. It doesn't matter. So if you have a database of users that you want to create dynamic documents for, then you can run a CF query. You can get that data and use that. If you have flat files, if you have CSV files, but essentially once you read in your data, once you get it from whatever source it is, you can then pass it to our API. So I'm going to do a demo here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to use Microsoft Word for my demo. I'm not going to use code. Start with a blank document. And I'm going to create kind of like a basic offer letter. So dear name, we are pleased to offer you the job of, we'll say, position. We will pay you X. And then beneath this, I'm going to have a paragraph that is going to be optional. Since you live in Louisiana, we will also give you a bonus of fried shrimp because we like to eat healthy in Louisiana. So one of the things that we provide is a Microsoft Word add-in. Once you've installed that, we get a button up here in the UI. I can click it, and then I can just click Get Started. And then what I can do is I can either take some pre-built JSON. So maybe my engineer has selected a record from a user table and spit that out as JSON, or I can start by scratch. So I'll say continue without JSON. And I'm going to create tags, and the tags are my variables. So I will create a tag called name. That will be a string. And I'll click create another. I'll make a tag called position. It's also a string. And I'll create another. Now I'll make a tag called salary. That will be a number. And I'll say I'm done here. So once I have these tags here, I can then just go into Word, and this is Word, so I can make it a heading. I can do all kind of formatting. I'm going to make name be a tag, like so. I want position to be a tag. I'll just do this. And by the way, I don't have to use this. I mean, you see it just like bracket, bracket. So if I don't want to click, I can just do bracket, bracket, salary. Make sure I type it right. And then let's actually take this and let's test it. So again, I'm not writing any code at all. I'm going to hit generate document. It's going to offer me some default JSON. So I'll go in here and say Raymond Camden. And, you know, I think I'm pretty smart. So the position will be ruler of the planet. And my salary will be $90 a year. That's plenty. I'll continue. And right now, this Word add-in is actually talking to our API, the same thing that my Node.js or ColdFusion code would do. But what's nice is that I can test it right here in Microsoft Word. I hit View Document, and I can see, hopefully, Dear Raymond Camden. Let me zoom in a little bit. That we are pleased to offer you the job of ruler of the planet. We will pay you 90. So that's one example, but let's kick it up a little bit. I want this paragraph to be dynamic. So I'm going to make a new tag, and it's called, let's say, where you live. And that will be a string. It's not a great name. I'll go into the advanced tab here, and we have a section for conditional content. And I will say, you know, let's look for where you live. And if it's equal to Louisiana, I want to have a condition run. And so it basically inserted some code into my Microsoft Word. And, you know, we're developers, so this probably makes a little bit of sense here. And then if I want to test this, I'll hit generate document. I won't worry about name and position and salary. And actually, I'll keep where you live as the default and see what happens. I'll hit continue. And take a sip of water, hit view document, and we will see, there we go. That third paragraph did not show up. If I go back and hit continue and say, let's do this again. And this time I'll say, I do live in Louisiana. I'll make sure I spell it right. L-O-U, Louisiana, hit continue. It's talking to the API again. And we will view document, and we will see that third paragraph. So that's a rather simple example. You can do everything that Microsoft Word supports. So if I wanted a logo here, if I wanted pictures and all that, I could do that. Our conditional data supports looping. So you can loop over an array of data. You can also have a dynamic table. You can even have dynamic images where you pass in the image as either a URL that points to a particular image or as base 64 data. So if I had a picture of the person I was sending a job offer to, I could include that in the document. We also support, you know, basic formatting. So for example, for salary, I could apply formatting so it automatically includes the commas. I do believe it is English only locales. So in India, I don't think you use commas for the thousands place. But what's nice is that any place where JSON breaks down, you can actually take your data and you can format that salary the way you like beforehand and just use that as the data that you pass in. So that's document generation. We do have a bunch of templates that you could take and play with that are a little bit more, you know, businessy than one I just showed. And you could see the list here. And this will give you a Word document with all the tags already in there, as well as some sample JSON data. And we have an online demo that does pretty much the exact same thing. So you could see the same example applications. I mentioned that we support tables. So I'll click on invoice and you'll see an example. So right here, this is how a dynamic table would look. And what it's going to do is for every row of invoice bill details, you can see in the JSON here, it's an array. It will repeat that table row for each of those, which is really, really nice. You also have basic math support. So we can do like a sum on an array. In this case, you can see we're doing tax by doing, again, simple math. So you do have some flexibility. But again, anything that we don't support, you can just do in your data before you pass it in. So that's document generation. Again, this can be done at scale. I do have a demo of this in code, but it's really the exact same thing that I showed before, where I create credentials, I create data, execution contexts, and all that. All of our APIs follow the same type format, which is kind of nice. It makes it a bit more familiar, and it's not hard to go from one operation to the next. So speaking of that, our third and final API that I'll be talking about today is the PDF Extract API. So this is a service that's powered by Adobe Sensei. So it's like super powered artificial intelligence, machine language, and it returns a heck of a lot of data about a PDF document. It could return the images that are inside a PDF document. It can even find tables inside a PDF document and return that as, for example, a CSV or an XLSX document. So I'm going to show an example of this. Demo services extract. So this is pretty similar. Let me just close this. This is pretty similar to like the OCR example. It's a little bit more wordy because I'm passing in a bunch of arguments saying that, hey, when you extract, I do want all the images returned. I want the tables returned. That's not done by default because it takes more work. So that's why I'm telling the SDK to do it. I also want my tables as CSV files. I'm taking an input PDF here, planetary science to cuddle survey.pdf, and then I'm saving it. The result will always be a zip file, and I'll show you what that means in a moment. If I run node extract.zip, it's taking my input PDF, it's passing it, it's extracting the data from the PDF, it's also extracting the images, and also extracting the tables. And that's all saved in output.zip. And I'm pretty sure I already extracted that. I did. In this case, there were no pictures in the PDF, just tables and data. But let's look at that data first. And as you can see, it is a wall of text, a huge wall of text. So I'm going to tell code to format this to make it a little bit more readable. And if we scroll to the top, we'll see it's a JSON representation of what's in the PDF, and it is every single possible thing imaginable on the PDF. It creates an array of elements where it will tell you this particular element, here are the bounds for it. Here's the font being used. You can even see the text from the document as well as its path in terms of, is it a header? Is it a paragraph, etc.? And this continues throughout the entire PDF document. And you can see in this case, it is almost 20,000 lines of code. The tables, here is one of the CSVs, and you can see it's the information. Get the same thing as an image as well. I did not ask for an XLSX file, but you could if you wanted to. But what's interesting about this is that once I have this data, I can then do post-processing. If I want just the text, I can get just the text. If I want to look for certain fonts, if I want to look at the tabular data and insert it into a database via ColdFusion, I could do that as well. Basically, the Extract API by itself, we just give you the data. How you actually use the data will depend on your particular use case. So if you're, for example, parsing a history of old invoices, you may want to use Extract to kind of figure out what did people actually purchase, what were the prices, and so forth. So we give you all that data. Actually making use of it can be a bit intense. I'll give you a couple real-world examples, and I have these on blog posts if you need to see them. But because we give you tabular data as CSV, I actually wrote code that looked at 20 PDFs that all had tables. I got all of the CSVs, I parsed it in, and I combined it into one data set. And then when I had that data set, I was able to do queries on it. I was able to slice and dice it. Another thing you can do is take the text and run a natural language parser on it. So what's cool about that is that you can actually get a PDF, extract the text, run an NLP parser on it, and then you could say, this PDF talks about X, Y, and Z. So if you're building a search engine for a large library of PDFs, being able to say, hey, does this PDF talk about Bill Gates, the person? Does this PDF talk about Adobe, the company? You can do that by taking what our API does and combining it with other services to give you an analysis on what that information represents. So it is pretty complex. Don't feel bad if it's a bit overwhelming. We do have a lot of resources. Our docs cover everything. And you can see there's 2 APIs here that I mentioned were early access program. Not really talking about them just yet, but I will be soon. We have a support forum, and it's actually pretty busy. And see Adobe forums, you can see here. And we're also on Stack Overflow. Now, I'll be honest, not a lot of our users are using Stack Overflow, but I know I try to check it every day or two, sometimes once a week, because it is kind of slow. But we do have a presence there if you want to use that. And we have a blog, and not just us, but blog.developer.adobe.com. It has our document service team plus other developer-related stuff that's happening at Adobe. You can see Mark Takata has a post talking about ColdFusion and DDX. So I mentioned that like some of the stuff we do duplicates what's kind of natively built into ColdFusion, and that is an example of that right there. So that is my slide deck. And I'm looking over here at the chat. If there are any questions, I'd be happy to answer. If there are no questions, I greatly appreciate y'all coming out tonight and listening to me ramble, and hit me up. I see people typing. Let's see what I get. So being asked about Slack channel, we do not have a public Slack. We have the support forums and we have Stack Overflow. Honestly, our support forum is the best place. And by the way, if you're a commercial customer, you typically get paid customer service. What you pay gives you support. So you have a more direct option as well. I see Cigar typing. Sekar. Oh, not typing anymore. Oh, there we go. So their question, and I'm going to read it in case people are watching the video and not reading the chat, but I have a document review application that the reviewer wants to add comments and send back to the document creator. Is it possible to achieve there? Yes, but you will have to write code. So like I said, the PDF embed lets you write comments and draw lines and annotate all that, etc. You're not manipulating the live version. However, we give you hooks to know when an annotation is added and do whatever you want to with that. We also give you the ability to take over the save operation, and you could stream that to a server. So using embed, if you write the code, you can do it such that if you annotate and save, it overwrites the original, or maybe it overwrites a copy, but it puts it on the server. and then you can fire off code that emails that document to whomever that reviewer is. That whole process, like you would have to do that, but the embed API gives you the hooks to enable that, and hopefully that made sense. Yeah, you don't have to download that. The save button can be modified in code. Cool. Any other questions, y'all? By the way, thank you again for having me. I definitely appreciate it.
Okay, probably we can wait for another 1 or 2 minutes to see anyone want to ask a question or something. Then, if no, then we can close it off.
Sounds good to me. I see two people typing. Sakar, so OCR possible for other documents. Oh, not doing my screen anymore. I will bring this back over here. So I'm looking at y'all. Technically, no, but we have an API, an API to go from Word doc to PDF, and then you can OCR that. So yes and no, and hopefully that makes sense. And by the way, the blog link I shared, if I get my ColdFusion code working, I'll either do it there or RaymondCamden.com. Like I said, I had issues with the JWT. Life would be so much easier if we just didn't have to worry about security.
Okay, I just changed the layout so that people can able to put some, what do you call it, responses for the poll. Guys, just feel free to add your poll answers so that it will be useful for me to organize better things or betterments or something. So as of now, it is a very simple question. So yes or no binary for 2 questions.
I think we may be good. I don't see any more questions coming in.